Today, I wanted to introduce you to Ian Hurst, who's Transformational Director at Mid-Kent Council, or Mid-Kent Partnership, and he's going to run through what we've been doing as an organisation to transition the way the Mid-Kent Partnership works together.
We're part of the Mid-Kent Improvement Partnership. That's an affiliation of 3 councils, Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells and Swale Borough Councils. We're not geographically clustered. It stretches right away from the north coast of Kent, so the Isle of Sheppey, Faversham, Sittingbourne, over the North Downs, down through Maidstone and then up onto High Weald and Tunbridge Wells. It's demographically diverse. Tunbridge Wells, as you might expect, an affluent borough overall, but some of the wards, some of the areas do actually see some of the lowest indices of deprivation from right across the country. And we see a wide variation like that right across the partnership, and I think that reflects in the way that some of the residents choose to contact and transact with us. Some prefer face-to-face or the phone, whilst others prefer to use the internet and are quite comfortable with that. So the partnership itself, it serves residents right across the 3 councils, and we've got 8 services that are shared, and that's a combination of both frontline services and the back office. Some of those services are shared between all 3, whereas others maybe only be shared between a couple of the councils. All of our councils may have services that are actually shared outside of the partnership, so there's lots of wheels within wheels and different partnerships going on depending upon what the need is at any particular time. So within the partnership we've got our council tax and housing benefits, our licensing teams, our environmental health teams. They're the key sort of customer facing services that are shared. And then we've got some back office functions as well, things like HR, legal, audit, planning support and our ICT partnership as well. We've also got a shared debt recovery service, and that's operating on behalf of the 3 councils to bring in an income for us. Between them, those services have got around about 224 members of staff and an operating budget of 9.74 million between them. And during the course of the partnership, over £13 million of cumulative savings have been achieved through those arrangements. But it's not just about the shared services, collaboration goes beyond that. A recent example is our collaborative bid to the Department for Communities and Local Government and their Transformation Challenge Award. As a partnership we secured £569,000 of funding for the delivery of new software systems. That was around a step change in the use of ICT to support customer contact and improve ways of working in the back office. Part of that funding is being used to improve our online services for those who prefer to use that method of contact. But we also recognise the need to improve our telephony for residents, and with so many of our staff members now engaged in shared service working across multiple sites for our internal communications as well. So officers working across multiple sites, they need to collaborate and work with each other. So where do we start? Our starting point was really a disparate collection of phone systems across the 3 councils. Technologically, I think we had a couple of Siemens high path switches and traditional push button phones at each of those, a couple of the sites, and then we had an IPFX IP telephony solution at Maidstone Borough Council. And I think those systems suited our organisations absolutely fine when we were operating independently, but as more and more of our services went into partnership working, more and more workarounds were being put in place to deal with the kind of fundamental changes in approaches to working. So just some examples of that. We've got the environmental health staff. They're working out of the town hall in Tunbridge Wells. They've actually got Maidstone telephone numbers and they're delivering services to residents in Swale. But of course there's a lot more home working as well. And they were being provided with mobile phones because we needed to get in touch with them, and obviously their work phone was actually on their desk at work. Our council tax staff spread across 2 sites. They had to dial an external number to talk to a colleague in the same team. So there's lots of little things like that. And we also had officers spending an hour or more travelling from one side of the county to the other, from the north to the south and vice versa, to get to team meetings. So we've got quite a robust home working solution. We can access all of the applications that we need when home working. We've got Wi-Fi throughout our buildings, and actually I can pick up my tablet and I can go and work in pretty much any other public sector building across the county, which is great. But the telephony has really been a serious impediment to being truly mobile, because my desk phone could never travel with me because it was plugged in. It literally tied me to my desk. We did a desk occupancy study, and it found that I was at my desk maybe 33% of the time, so that meant 2/3 of the day my phone was ringing and I wasn't there to answer it. I'm not customer facing, but our colleagues in planning, building control, housing and so on, they were missing calls from customers, so we needed to modernise our telephony, and that meant making the move to unified communications. What did we go for? So we had a look at a few different options. We looked at the existing solution used by Maidstone Borough Council and then offers from other major providers as well. We opted for Skype for Business in the end because of the fit with our existing software and hardware investments. We were able to just extend our existing licensing agreements, which greatly simplified the procurement process. Added to that was the familiarity of the system. All our staff use Microsoft Outlook and Office, and Skype for Business integrates nicely with those applications. And for our deployment, we went with Freedom, now GCI, and right from the start they stood out as a business with the credibility to deliver unified comms across our partnership. We knew that they had experience with implementations in the public sector and local government, and if you've ever worked for the public sector, you'll know that they can be a bit idiosyncratic in the way that they do things. I'll give an example of that. We were happily working through our procurement when one of our finance officers noticed that we had exceeded the procurement threshold by about £1,000 or so. I think the threshold was about £250,000, but we'd exceeded that. We've got to be accountable and transparent with public funds, and that's rightly so, but this little oversight of ours meant that the contract couldn't be signed with Freedom until it had been signed off by our cabinet, and that added another few weeks to the process. We took this problem to our kick-off meeting with Freedom, and they were just so understanding at that point. I think they just knew our business and they didn't bat an eyelid, and they just carried on and said, yeah, all right, it doesn't matter, we're not going to delay things, we'll just carry on. And I think their reaction at that point was key to building a positive and constructive relationship moving forwards through the rest of the project. And the rest of the implementation has, I think, been a bit of a breeze compared to other implementations I've been involved in. I've learned that our IT infrastructure has posed a bit of a challenge to the Freedom engineers. So we've got 3 separate networks with subnets, different firewalls. I'm not sure that Freedom were quite prepared for the complexity that they encountered. We spent a lot of time getting calls to connect across sites, but piece by piece, as time went by, each challenge was solved. And our go-live date at Tunbridge Wells, it was delayed by a couple of weeks, I think, because we had issues with an integration into our call centre software. That wasn't a Freedom problem. And our go-live was actually delayed until I was on leave, going camping in Cornwall. As I was the lead on the implementation of Skype for Business across the organisation, I was a little bit concerned. I was going to go on leave, do I delay it? If we delayed it, it had a knock-on effect for the other 2 councils in the partnership. But I think because I had a lot of confidence in the project manager delivering the project from the Mid-Kent Partnership side of things, I had a lot of confidence in the ICT staff, and a lot of confidence in Freedom and the engineers there. I thought, well, we may as well go with it. And it did go live whilst I was on holiday, and it went without a hitch, and it's been absolutely fine ever since. So we went live in early August, and since then Freedom have delivered Skype for Business to Swell Borough Council in early October, and then the final milestone will be the go live for Maidstone at the end of next week. So where are we now? I think our staff, they love it. We were a little worried by user acceptance. We have been working with phones for so long that people had memorised all the key codes to things like accessing voicemail, hunt groups, pickups, everything like that. And Skype for Business doesn't really work like that. It's designed for international teams collaborating together. And some of our staff couldn't really understand why they couldn't press 8, then an extension number to pick up someone else's phone. And during training, one of the staff turned around and said, why have you made it so bloody complicated to answer the phone? We got 80% of the staff through training, and we learned a lot from that. We tried to show them things like screen sharing, video conferencing, those sorts of things. But actually we had to focus on more of the basic things like how to answer a call and transfer it. So once we built the confidence with those basics, we could expose more of the system to them. And since then, I've had people stop me on the corridor and tell me it's probably the best bit of kit we've ever invested in as a council. Our chief executive does regular all-staff briefings about what's going on within the organisation. We Skyped his most recent, and we found more people joining online than actually turned up to see him talk in person. Some teams, they've been using it for things like software demos, and they used instant messaging to ask questions of the software supplier. We recently went live with the mobile app for some of our planning officers, and one of them's absolutely delighted that people are ringing his landline number and they're getting through to him on his mobile whilst he's standing in a field somewhere. So he's not missing any calls anymore, and we're being more responsive to members of the public. I think we're really at the tip of the iceberg for the benefits it's going to bring us as a council and as a partnership. We won't really be seeing those benefits until all 3 councils are online with it, but we are really anticipating transformational change down the line. We have to do that as Tunbridge Wells because we're looking at building some new offices. They're going to be smaller offices, and we need to do flexible and mobile working to be able to fit in there. And Skype for Business is going to underpin that new way of working. We ended up with probably 7 or 8 wheelie bins full of old telephones after our go live. And what were we going to do with them all? And just my final slide here. This here is an art installation that one of our members of staff did. And they displayed that at our staff conference, Celebrate. And on each phone there's a little tag. You can probably see it there. And on each one of those tags is a customer service story. And we thought that was a really, really excellent bit of installation art to do. The Skype star at the top there, that came off, and that now proudly sits in my office. And every time I have a Skype call, I put it on my desk so that anyone poking their head around the door knows that I'm on a call.